All right, my name is Davin Sundvik with The Catcher today, and we're going to be going over the 5 reasons why double barrels may not be the best shotgun choice for new shooters. Now, the first 3 videos in this series, finding the right shotgun for you, I've tried to explain the different elements of shotgun shooting, and you might pick up on the fact that I love double barrel shotguns, but it doesn't mean that as a new shooter you have to use one. This is just 5 cons that if you can overcome, then you will be more than welcome to use a double barrel shotgun and probably enjoy it. So let's get right into the first con, which is not as obvious as some people may think, is that different double barrels have different features. So I'll give you an example. This particular side-by-side shotgun has, obviously it has extractors, which means that it slowly will release the ammunition as you drop the gun right here. It has 2 different triggers. Some shotguns don't have 2 triggers, some do. This one chambers the maximum length for actually, it doesn't chamber the maximum length for 410. My mistake. It only chambers 3-inch. So some shotguns do not have the full chambering of their caliber, and it's very typical for double barrels to not have a full chambering. But this one also has extractors, but this one is a Magnum shotgun, and it has a super long barrel in order to add some weight and compensate for the fact that it has a Magnum chambering, because it is a goose hunting shotgun. That's what it's great at doing. This shotgun has ejectors. This gun is more designed for upland game hunting. So ejectors are more likely to add complexities. In this little thing right here, there's a bunch of levers and springs that, if your gun was improperly treated, could all bind up one day and cause issues later on down the road. So just because it seems very simple on the outside does not mean it is simple on the inside. Another thing to understand is that these guns all have fixed chokes, which means that they cannot unscrew and be interchangeable. Some double barrel shotguns that are more modern are typically equipped with threaded interchangeable chokes. So some shotguns have issues with ammunition, which is what we're going to get into next. Sourcing ammunition for double barrels. Now, some guns like this huge goose hunting shotgun handle recoil very well, and so they have the full range of chamberings that you can put in a shotgun like this. The downfall is it's very heavy to be able to overcome that recoil and make it comfortable for the shooter. Otherwise, people wouldn't buy the gun. So a more modern shotgun, like a semi-automatic shotgun, might be more likely to chamber a 3.5-inch round, or a pump action shotgun to chamber a 3.5-inch round, because that's what people expect out of a modern shotgun, is that ability to be able to handle different things. While your pump action shotgun is typically still going to recoil just like a double barrel will, generally speaking, the reason why they have a Magnum chambering is just for the option to do so. But double barrels are typically created for a very specific task, and so they're not created with utility in mind as far as variability in your shot and customizability. Hopefully that makes sense. So you might be limited on the type of shot that you can shoot because, for example, these fixed chokes do not handle steel very well. If you shoot steel with them too much, eventually they will wear out over time, and so you would not be able to unscrew a choke and replace the choke. You would just have a much looser choke that has been worn out over time. So you definitely want to avoid shooting steel out of them. You can shoot a little bit of steel, but you wouldn't want to shoot thousands and thousands of rounds of steel through them. That'll eventually damage them, unless, of course, they have threaded chokes. So sourcing ammunition could be potentially expensive. If you're shooting bismuth instead of steel, bismuth is a great non-toxic lead alternative, but it is more expensive than steel. So the price difference in being able to find specialty ammunition that actually fits your gun is going to be more difficult on an older style shotgun than on a newer style double barrel. So that's just one thing to look out for. Not all double barrels have this problem, but some do, and it's just more likely that you're going to have this problem if you really want to get into shooting used antique double barrels. That's definitely something you're going to want to learn how to overcome, is sourcing ammunition and the right type of ammunition for your gun. Okay, the third reason, and we kind of covered it with the interchangeable chokes, is that modern semi-autos and modern pump actions are just more feature packed. They're more likely to have an abundance of features that make the gun easier to use, easier to find ammo for, and also just in general more customizations. So other than interchangeable choke tubes, you'll also find swivel studs on newer shotguns that you will not find on antique double barrels. Also, you can get magazine extensions which can increase your magazine capacity, or you can find plugs that decrease your magazine capacity to bring you into compliance with whatever kind of game that you're hunting and make it much more feature rich, which gets into my fourth downfall, which is magazine capacity. Now, this isn't always a downfall, but it is in certain circumstances. So for example, when you're duck hunting, you typically don't have enough time to reload. Whether or not you're using a pump or a semi-auto or a double barrel, you typically can't reload fast enough to get an extra shot out there other than what's being held in the gun. So you have one less opportunity to shoot a duck. Now, most people don't shoot 3 ducks for 3 shots with a semi-auto, so it typically doesn't matter that much. You're better off taking 2 slow shots and getting 2 birds rather than missing 3 times. But for some people it does matter, and so that extra shell can make a difference. But for things like upland game hunting, where you might flush an animal, miss, and it might only have ran into the next bush and started to hide from you, does mean that you have 2 options. You can either continue walking forward with less ammo in the gun, or you can attempt to reload. And reloading a double barrel means that as soon as we open the chamber, it becomes inadequate to be able to fire, right? I have to then close the gun, then shoulder it, then fire it, which adds 2 extra steps versus in a semi-automatic shotgun, I can typically just top it off. And it's much faster, but it's also, if I'm in the middle of topping off and I see my game, I can reach my hand out of my pocket and shoot no problem. So it does make it a little bit less convenient for certain types of hunting applications. But this gun has an ejector to try to combat that problem, make it more convenient to reload. But like I said earlier, when you're duck hunting, that ejector also makes it a little bit more difficult to manage your rounds when you're in the water, because you could drop them in the water and then now you got to reach your hand in the cold water to go pick up your spent shells or even your live shells that the gun incorrectly ejected, because the ejector system is not always perfect. Sometimes you don't open it up all the way. As you can see, this gun is just a tiny bit stiff on the bottom end, and it's a little bit stiff on the very end of closing because the gun's not worn in yet. So you can use the gun incorrectly, which makes it a little bit inconvenient. So if magazine capacity is something that you value as a new shooter, then definitely you're going to want to stick to a semi-automatic or a pump action shotgun. All right, the 5th and final reason why double barrels may not be great for new shooters is actually a benefit of double barrels that you just may not be able to utilize. It's more likely to confuse you than it really is likely to help you, which is the fact that you can have 2 different chokes for different guns. Typically for newer shooters, consistency is better. You're better off shooting 1 choke and understanding it well for what it's good for and not good for, and getting a lot of practice with that choke and just saying, hey, this is the choke I shoot, these are the shots I take. I don't take shots that my choke can't handle. And you will shoot more birds if you do that as a new shooter. But as you advance in your shooting ability, you may want to add other shot opportunities to your repertoire. You may want to have an improved cylinder choke in one and a modified choke in the other for a very specific style of hunting. So for example, if I am hunting upland game birds like chukar and I see one run past me and it's running on the ground, I will use the modified choke to try to put more pattern onto that bird's head, more likely to get an ethical clean kill on the ground. And it's not running very fast, so I don't need to worry about lead. But I can use that improved cylinder for when it first pops up and it's crossing my path. I get a little bit wider spread to be able to hit the bird before it gets too far away. Then if I didn't take a shot on it on the ground, as it's going away, I can use the modified choke, which is slightly tighter, and take a nice going away shot with better pattern density. Newer hunters are less likely to be able to take advantage of these nuances and are more likely to cripple birds based on a lack of experience with the choke and not using the correct barrel for the correct application. So that's one reason why it could be a disadvantage to newer hunters. Another reason is there might be situations where we know that multiple different animals or game animals could be present in a type of situation. And I'll give you one situation where you just run into some ethics violations, and another situation where you could actually break some real laws and potentially hurt people. So if you know that there are ducks and quail at the exact same area, and you want to put 6-shot in your improved cylinder, and you want to put 2-shot in your modified for shooting ducks and the decoys, then what could happen is either you shoot a quail that is very close to you with a pattern that's too dense and a shot that's too large, and you destroy the meat on that bird. Or what could happen is you shoot a choke that's too loose with a shot that's too small at a duck that is too far away, and you end up crippling the duck and losing it, and you're not able to find your bird. In both cases, you've created some wanton waste. Really low danger for humans that are in the area, but not really what we would want to accomplish as far as good hunting, right? We want to be able to kill our birds ethically, but we also want to be able to take them home and eat them at the end of the day. So we don't want to leave cripples, and we don't want to be blowing our birds to smithereens because we chose the wrong load for the bird. That leads into the next side, which is creating potentially dangerous situations because people believe that they're more capable than they really are. So let's just say you're deer hunting, but you also know that there's some chukar in the area, and so you've got your improved cylinder loaded up with some 4-shot, lead bird shot, and you've got your modified choke or your full choke loaded up with a nice shotgun slug. I probably wouldn't shoot a slug out of a full choke, but you've got your modified barrel loaded up with a shotgun slug for hunting deer with, right? And a chukar flies up, you shoot the wrong barrel, and now a deer slug is going through the air, and who knows where it's going to land and what it may hit. So that's just an example of why we may not want to put different types of ammo for different game in the exact same gun. If you're going to go after a game animal, go after just that game animal and make sure that all of the ammo that is in that gun is appropriate for that particular game animal. It doesn't mean that some ammo might not be better or some ammo might not be worse. And I'll give you an example of that where it's actually very practical. So with duck hunting, both 4-shot and 2-shot is perfectly acceptable and lethal for killing ducks. However, I would prefer to use 2-shot in a tighter pattern, and I would prefer to use 4-shot in a looser pattern. It's just my preference. So if I'm shooting at ducks and I want to shoot a round of 2-shot at a further distance, but I accidentally shoot 4-shot, it's not going to be the end of the world. Now, my odds of crippling a bird do go up, but I still have a reasonable chance of ethically killing that bird. Versus shooting it with 6-shot, which is more designed for quail, has very little reason or very little odds of killing a duck at a long range, like 40 yards. I only really have the chance to cripple it, which is not fair to the bird. So make sure that whatever if you are a new shooter and you do decide to put different ammo in your gun, make sure that both ammo choices are appropriate for the target species, and make sure that you're doing it in a way that's safe and you're not going to get confused by it. And even if you do get confused, your confusion is going to be harmless at the end of the day. So with that being said, doesn't mean that you can't shoot shotguns if you are a new person. If you want to watch my next video, I'm going to give you the top 5 reasons why I love using double barrels, which is going to be way more fun to make. But I did want to make a devil's advocate against my own opinion, because just because I like shooting double barrels does not mean that I do not experience negatives about shooting them. There are definitely drawbacks and there's definitely pros. And I love the whole aspect of shooting shotguns, particularly double barrels. And so I didn't want to be dishonest about the benefits without at least talking about the cons.